Hello everyone, welcome to Barry's Book Reviews. This is episode number 37 and today I am reviewing Miracle on Cherry Hill by Sun-mi Hwang and translated by Chi-young Kim. And Sun-mi is most famous for her novel The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly. And I've already reviewed this book on the channel, so please go and watch that review. It was a hugely successful and popular book in Korea. I think it sold over 2 million copies, and it was on the bestseller list for years after it was published. And it was also translated into a very charming animated film. So read the book and watch the film. And you can also see a 40-minute interview with Sun-mi on the channel as well. She visited Seoul Book Club several years ago. So please go and watch the review of The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly and listen to the interview with Sun-mi. But that's not the book we're talking about today. Like I said, we're talking about Miracle on Cherry Hill. And this was Sun-mi's third book that she's had translated into English. See, she's actually written, she has a huge body of work. She's written dozens of books. She's also won lots of literature awards here in Korea. And, she's primarily a children's book writer. But her work has this sort of fable-like quality that appeals to adult readers as well. So even though technically, I guess, she's a children's book, a children's author, she has a significant readership of adults as well, like me. And she has a very big readership in general here in Korea. And since her novels have started getting translated into English and other languages, also elsewhere around the world. Hwang's second book in translation was The Dog Who Dared to Dream. The Dog Who Dared to Dream. But today's book, I haven't reviewed this yet. I might review this in a day or two. Very, very charming book as well. But yes, the book that we're talking about today, Miracle on Cherry Hill, was Hwang's third book to get translated into English. It was published in Korea originally in 2014. And the English translation was published in 2019. And generally speaking, it was very warmly and favorably reviewed at the time. It was also her third novel, so all three of her novels that have been translated into English have been translated by Chi-young Kim, who is a very successful literary translator and also a lawyer, I believe, or used to be a lawyer at some point. But Chi-young Kim also translated Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-suk and lots and lots of other books. I think she did a couple of Kim Young-ha novels as well. Can't remember at the moment. And also, all of Hwang Sun-mi's English novels, they also have these, sort of very beautiful and charming illustrations by a Japanese illustrator called Nomoko. And they all have these very distinctive front covers. So that's the Miracle on Cherry Hill front cover, The Dog Who Dared to Dream front cover, and The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly. So all very similar. So they're all very similar colors, but similar covers, but sort of very distinctive style of illustration. So they're all distinctively Hwang Sun-mi English translations, right? They have this sort of uniform uniform illustration style. Anyway, so yeah, this is the third book of Hwang Sun-mi translated into English, and there was a great quotation from Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson's a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist. He wrote The Orphan Master's Son, which is a novel about North Korea, which I didn't actually read. I always meant to read, but I never got around to it. But anyway, Adam Johnson has a quote on the jacket, which I think encapsulates some of Hwang Sun-mi's appeal in general. And he said that her work is at the crossroads of fable, philosophy, children's literature, and nature writing. I think that's a great way of putting it. Her work does contain all of those elements. It touches on all of those aspects. And today's book certainly includes some of those sort of fable and philosophical elements that Adam Johnson refers to. So what's the basic story for Miracle on Cherry Hill? What type of story is Hwang telling in her new novel? So of her 3 translated novels, this is the only one so far in which the protagonist is a human. So in The Dog Who Dared to Dream, the main character is a dog. And in The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly, the main character is a hen. But in this book, the main character is a human character. So the story begins, there's an old man, he's walking up a hill to a neighborhood called Cherry Hill. It's a rundown neighborhood that's been scheduled for redevelopment. And the locals who live in that neighborhood, they're protesting against this redevelopment. The old man is the novel's main character. He's our protagonist. His name is Kang Dae-su. He's an extremely grumpy, miserable, curmudgeonly old man. You know, he hates the kids that are playing near the bus stop. They make him angry. He's rude to the friendly store owner who tries to make small talk with him. And the nice young schoolgirl that he bumps into and the cute puppy, they make him furious. He hates all of these things. And we learn that he is the president of the construction company that is trying to redevelop Cherry Hill. And we quickly learn that he lived in Cherry Hill as a child when he was young and very poor. He comes from very humble beginnings. But now he's a very successful old man. He has a long career behind him. He's, you know, in his retirement years, or he's coming up to retirement, but he's recently been diagnosed with a brain tumor. And he's purchased the largest house in the center of Cherry Hill. And the reason he's done this is so that he could return to the neighborhood of his childhood with the idea of spending his remaining days in peace and quiet. Now, obviously, as the president of the construction company trying to redevelop the neighborhood, this causes some conflict with the locals who live there. So how does this situation between the locals and Mr. Kang develop? So this is the crux of the story. You know, when he arrives at this property, you know, this sort of significant property with lots of land around it that's in the center of the Cherry Hill neighborhood, he realizes that the locals have been using his grounds, his lands, the lands of this property that he's bought. The children play there, the little girl walks her dog there, there's an old lady has a vegetable garden, and there's a mountain path that everybody in the neighborhood uses, and they all enjoy sharing this area and this neighborhood. And he's furious, he hates all of these things. He orders his long-suffering assistant to put up a fence and block everyone from entering his property and the surrounding environment. He hates these people that are intruding on his land. He thinks they're invading his life. They're trespassing in his private land and in his life. And at the same time as this is happening, his health is declining, and he's obsessed with some tragic events that happened in his childhood and that occurred in Cherry Hill. The locals, in turn, they're depressed that this area in the center of their neighborhood has been blocked off. This is, you know, part of their community. They saw it as the heart of the neighborhood. So they're also very angry and depressed and dejected. So on the one hand, we have this bitter, mean old man in conflict with the downtrodden and hardworking residents of Cherry Hill. And then what follows is a series of encounters between mean old Mr. Kang and the locals that make him reevaluate his life. You know, reevaluate these events that he's haunted by from his past until ultimately he mellows and softens and eventually relents. So Mr. Kang is a little bit like an Ebenezer Scrooge kind of character. He goes on a similar journey that Scrooge goes on. What's Hwang trying to do with this character? What's she saying? It's a familiar character arc. You'll have encountered it in many other places, in films and novels and so on. So Mr. Kang is haunted by his memories of his childhood. He's haunted by the kids that bullied him and treated him unfairly because he was so poor when he was a child. He can't let go of a tragic event that happened to his father. His father was very unfairly mistreated, and this has lingered with Mr. Kang for all of his adult life. And these events and some other difficult situations, they motivated him to become successful until he, rose to the top of his chosen profession and, was very wealthy and successful. But despite all his wealth and his success, he's never been able to leave these events behind. These events that shaped him as a child, they still remain in his memories. He doesn't have any family of his own. He's not married. He has no children. And there doesn't seem to be anything in his life apart from this drive to be successful as a businessman, and then these awful memories that he is, obsessed with. But gradually, as he meets more people and starts to unravel the ties and the stories of the local people that live there, we learn that most of them have some kind of connection with his own childhood. And these people, they increasingly provide company and support and continuity as he weakens and succumbs to his medical condition. And as this is happening, he reevaluates his view of their behavior in the present and in the past. And this time he's looking at it from an adult perspective rather than that of a child when he was just inspired to anger. And this is ultimately a story about coming to terms with your past, the power of releasing negative emotions, and not holding on to negative experiences. Something which I think many of us do, right? I certainly know I do, right? And it's giving this sort of advice that you need to let go of your negative emotions and not hold on to these negative experiences. It's also a tribute to community. The way that people live in Korea has been changing over the past, just continuously, but it's been changing again and over the past decade or so, the past couple of decades. More and more people live in these large apartment complexes. And Hwang seems to be asking in Miracle on Cherry Hill, at what cost does this happen? Are we losing some of the benefits of a close-knit community? Do we have close-knit communities anymore? Do we know our neighbors? Do we share in their lives? Do we participate in their sorrows and their joys? Or are we just surrounded by anonymous people that we don't care about? It's a deceptively simple novel, but it's a novel that I think asks very big and important and even philosophical questions. I think it might be my favorite Hwang Sun-mi book. I know that The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly was a huge success, very successful book, and it is very sentimental and touching, but actually I think both of her other books are better than The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly. And I'm not 100% sure which I prefer more out of Miracle on Cherry Hill or The Dog Who Dared to Dream. They're both wonderful, they're both charming, they're both deeply moving, and I'm sure that many people would be fans of these books if they encountered them. There's just one other thing that I'd like to mention, and that is these illustrations. So we have these beautiful illustrations by Nomoko, who's a Japanese illustrator. This is the only place that I've encountered Nomoko's work, but Nomoko is apparently very successful and often draws designs for books and book covers, and like I said, has worked with Hwang Sun-mi in all 3 of her novels that have been translated into English, and it gives them a very distinctive look. They look like, beautiful little objects, and I love seeing them on my shelf. I love seeing them on my shelf together, and I wish I had Miracle on Cherry Hill in the physical edition, and maybe, sometimes I'm tempted to buy the physical edition, even though I've already got the ebook. edition. But the drawings they're just very simple, very elegant, and very evocative, and there's a sadness to the images that I think works very well with the stories that Hwang tells. And that's really all I want to say about Miracle on Cherry Hill. There was one other small thing I want to mention. When I read Miracle on Cherry Hill, it reminded me of another book that got translated at about the same time. It had very similar structure and plot and some thematic elements, and it was just interesting to me that these two novels came out at about the same time. The other novel was Hwang Sok-young's At Dusk, which I've also reviewed on the channel. You can go and listen to that review. Obviously, Hwang Sok-young and Hwang Sun-mi are very different writers, different styles of writing. But At Dusk also features, a very successful person who's been very successful in their career. In At Dusk, it's an architect who's at the end of his career, in his later stages of life, and is looking back over the events of his childhood, and the events that shaped him in his childhood neighborhood, and he's also returned to that neighborhood as an adult to redevelop it, just like Mr. Kang has in Miracle on Cherry Hill. And then both of these characters are reflecting on the sort of development of Korea over the trajectories of their life, and this idea of community, right? What happens to communities and to traditional neighborhoods when they're redeveloped, right? So I thought it was interesting to compare the books like that. And there was a quote from At Dusk, which I think also, it's doing something similar to Miracle on Cherry Hill. And the character in At Dusk says, "Everyone thinks it's good to be an architect because your buildings will stand long after you're gone. But for all you know, they could be left looking greedy and ugly. What good is it having a monument or testament to you remain if it's just a symbol of greed and avarice," right? But both of the novels, they have this similar tone or feeling of regret. Maybe Hwang Sun-mi and Hwang Sok-young, I think, aren't that different. I think Hwang Sok-young is probably a bit older, but they're still looking back and saying, we've lost something in the way that our communities used to be, right? They're asking questions about, what do we gain and lose as communities, and when redevelopment happens. So I thought it was interesting. But anyway, Miracle on Cherry Hill, it's a fantastic book. Very moving and warm and autumnal, and I just think lots of people would enjoy it a great deal. I certainly did. Anyway, thank you for watching episode number 37. Like I said, I'll try and review The Dog Who Dared to Dream sometime soon. And thank you for watching, and take care, and I'll see you next time.